everybody? Welcome back to the show. This is the Mental Breakdown. I'm your host, Joey Velez. We bring on different individuals in high performing environments to see if we can learn a thing or two about what they do, about how mental skills plays a role in their environment. Today, I am joined by basketball player development coach Ketih. So he has experience, over 10 years of experience coaching various levels, high school, middle school, collegiate, professional, not just with different athletes, but also collaborating with different trainers in each of those areas as well. So come join us. We're going to talk a lot about basketball, a lot about the mentality of hoopers these days, and then what it takes to get to the next level, but then also challenges you see at each of those levels. So sit back, take a listen, let me know what you think. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, rate, review on all the podcasts when this gets released. But sit back and enjoy.
How's it going?
What's up, Coach?
The word. What's up, Coach? How's it going?
Yeah, it's been a minute, man. How's
It's been
life?
a long time. Life is good, man. Man, I like the Kobe and the MJ picture in the back.
Got to, man. I remember I got that
So
for I think my birthday, like, geez, 5 years ago, something like that. And that was probably one of the better birthday gifts I've ever had.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
Not too far off
Uh,
from I got Steph, dude, just hitting a reverse layup against
yeah.
Chase.
And you got the top three players in the league
I know. I
ever
was
play.
thinking about, like, do I need one like in the middle? I feel like I
You
gotta
you
if
gonna
I
have you gonna have to move the Kobe and the Mike in the middle.
yeah, I think so.
You know, you gonna put LeBron up there.
It's I feel like I have to, man. Like he's
You
elite.
kind of have
He's
to.
he's he's up he's GOAT status,
Yeah,
so it's like very appreciative I've been alive for his whole run, like we're not gonna see
yeah.
someone like him for a while.
Yeah, and I think he's at the tail end of his career,
Yeah.
and it's better to just enjoy what's left instead of debating it. I think a lot
Yeah.
of times, as fans, we're always debating who's better, who's this, and in reality, it's like enjoy the show because
Yeah.
most of these guys that are in that conversation are generational,
Yep.
you know, and there's a lot of generational players that don't ever pan out too.
Yep.
So it's
It,
yeah, just enjoy the show. I mean, that's
enjoy
what
what you can, man. Like
yeah, it's
it's
entertainment.
coming to an
That's what
end
it is.
soon.
What we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
that's how I
you
feel about
saw.
that's how I feel about Steph right now, man. Is like, him being with the Warriors the whole time. It's like at some point that's gonna come to an end. And it's probably pretty close here. So like
Yeah,
everything he does, I just appreciate because at some point, like it's gonna be a lot different watching that team when he's gone. It's gonna be a
I
lot
mean,
different.
it's really different now from
Yeah.
what 3 years ago. We're just like, man,
Yeah.
we can't even make it out of the play-in game anymore. So
Yeah.
it's, yeah,
But
sometimes you just think back, say, man, those games with Katie, Sean Livingston, Iguodala, dude, just like you probably should have enjoyed that a little bit more than you know.
yeah.
You never know what you have till it's gone. Put
Yeah.
it that way.
Because it happens so quick, right? It's like
Oh,
back
so
to back
quick.
champs, sick, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, what happened? Like, where'd you
Yeah,
guys go?
yeah. That was a
No.
crazy run.
Yeah, that was a
So
crazy one.
it
Glad to
it
be
was it
glad to be
was
the Bears for
great.
that.
Yeah, exactly. It was great to be in the Bay Area. I will say it sucks with ticket price though. Ticket price, crazy.
I
I remember
think go ahead.
my first Warrior game was like the point guard was Derek Fisher. They
Oh
were
yeah.
playing the Jazz. It was Derek Fisher, Carlos Arroyo, and like my dad and I went. It was like $45 for lower bowl. We
Yep.
spent less than like $150 with tickets, drinks, hot dogs, all that stuff. And
Yep.
now it's like, dude, you can't even get in the building for less than like 250.
Yeah. I remember the season they lost to the Clippers in the first round of the playoffs, which was like I think they won the title the next year.
Yeah,
Opening night tickets that year was like, I don't know, 30, $40, something like that.
yeah.
Losing game
By the
seven to
end
the
of it,
Clippers next year, I'm pretty sure open day tickets were like $180. And I'm like,
yeah,
dude, here we
yeah.
go. Here we go.
It's yeah, it's great. It's crazy that like the loyal fans get priced out when you start doing well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's just how economics, I guess.
Yeah. Have my fun.
So,
Move on.
right, right.
But like, man, appreciate you getting you on here. I know we've been
Yep.
doing this, had this in the works, but wanted to get a little insight into your background within basketball. Had Coach T on, so I figured I
Yep.
want to get other Bay Area legends in my mind. I mean, East Bay
Oh,
legends
I
in my mind,
appreciate it.
get
I
them
appreciate it.
on.
I'm a legend in my own mind too,
Come on, man.
So
That's it, man. It's
there you go.
confidence. We're all legends,
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
so yeah, I definitely want to dive into your role for sure, and then maybe even like, your playing experience as well. But before we get into all that, like what's something that you are grateful for or something you appreciate right now in your life?
Um, Grateful for my experiences, really. I think good and bad, right?
Yeah.
Lessons learned, lessons to be learned, and not making same mistakes, whether it's personal life and or just even the professional life.
Yeah.
I joke about it sometimes that I've messed up a lot of players in the first couple years of training and coaching. That's why I'm halfway decent at what I do now. So yeah, shout out to all the kids that I was training 12 years ago that were my guinea pigs,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, but definitely
Uh,
experience. I think people got to learn from it.
yeah.
Uh, so
It's funny you say that because I had one of my buddies on in my field on for my last episode, and I talked to him about some of the first like activities I did for mental training with athletes. And
yeah,
like I'm having, this high school basketball player shoot free throws with their eyes closed, but then also shoot threes with their left hand. Like in my mind, it made sense to like be
yeah.
confident in like just be confident, like it'll work
It
out.
made them deteriorate because they're not making
Right.
they're
Like he
making
was
less
like,
shots than before. Yeah, for sure.
well, he was like, well, yeah, if you're having them shoot free throws with their eyes closed, it's kind of not helpful with their skill. But I get it. And I was like, ah, man, dude,
Yeah,
shout out that
you took a
person.
strike to Michael Jordan with the eyes closed. Nah, it's great. It's great.
Hey, if MJ can do it, anybody can do it. But
Yeah,
yeah, man,
right,
like, yeah, I mean, I think that's something that we miss on for sure early on in our lives, right? Is like
right,
every experience teaches you something, whether good or bad.
right.
And I think it's like, yeah, if it's something good, like maybe I take for granted. I mean, we just kind of got done talking about taking the granted run or Warriors run for granted. But then, like, if it's something bad, we just almost like kind of kick ourselves for, but we don't realize that, like, hey, you just got taught an extremely valuable lesson.
Right.
What were some of those lessons you learned, like, from your early stages of your career?
Um, Being intelligent in what we do.
Okay.
Okay, and I say that because I think earlier on in my coaching career and training career, when Tion and I first started coaching together in 2011, we were fire and brimstone. You're just gonna run and you're gonna be tough. And I look back now, I'm like, man, that group was tough, but man, we were doing some stupid stuff. Like this stuff doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and it was like, for example, like we had this group of JV kids, and it was a small school, and we just wanted to instill like winning and losing, right?
Yeah.
So for whatever reason, we're like, you know what? If we lose, we're gonna run a suicide for every point you lose by. We lost like 4 games that year, and we lost every game by like 35.
Oh,
We
jeez.
ran all 35, but you know, by the time those kids were seniors, they definitely hated losing.
Yeah.
But I think back to that, I'm like, I probably took some years off of their kneecaps and ankles, and there had to have been a more efficient way
Sure.
of instilling that. What do we say? Like hate. You gotta hate losing more than you love winning mentality. Like there's got to be a more efficient way, and
Yeah.
that's still one to this day. Like that's something I haven't figured out yet, but I'll tell you, I don't make all my kids run every time they miss a shot.
Yeah.
So yeah, like we talked about, like just not letting them deteriorate, and so just like being more intelligent and in that being more efficient at what we do. So
Yeah. And I think based on the experience, based on the knowledge you had at the time, you're like, screw it, this will work. And like, I don't know, like you said, it worked, right? Like you got to a point where
yeah,
like these kids hated losing and you
yeah,
didn't lose. So like, yeah, it worked, but yeah, now it's like thinking back, hey, it worked. However, is there a way to like tweak that a little bit?
yeah. I mean, that was 14 years ago, and you
Yeah.
look back, like talk to a mental coach, you're probably like that probably wasn't the best way to go about dealing with 14-year-old athletes,
Yeah.
but like, the other side of the coin for me, I'm like, well, it got done, you know, but
Right. Like
there's efficiency in it, and
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I remember back when I was coaching. I remember when I was assisting on varsity, and head coach would have them run suicides until everybody made the time. And as you run more, it's less likely going to happen, right? Because you're tired.
yeah,
And I remember one day I was running practice because he was gone out of town, and we had to run a suicide. And I was like, guys, like, look, we can run this until you make this all day. However, if you just bust your ass this one time, get it done now so we can move on to other stuff, right?
yeah,
Like, just bust it out now, and then we'll see what happens. Sure enough, like they did it right that first time. It's like, okay,
yeah,
thank you. Let's now
right,
move on, right? So I think it's
right,
like, yeah, how do you tweak the technique but get like the same outcome, right?
yeah, yeah.
Which
And I
sometimes
think
it takes figuring out
now,
to do that.
like with kids, is even harder now though,
Yeah,
with like the availability of social media and the just consistent comparison because of those things.
yeah,
I think it's harder and harder for kids to be in a great mental space to just get it done, or quote unquote get it over with, or get it right, because they're always thinking about the other person that's not even like involved,
yeah,
so
yeah.
it's
So
yeah.
you feel like social media is more of a detriment to today's game then?
Yes and no. And I always say this, like, not even with social media, like, you have to be in control and use things for what you need to use them, right? Like, if you're using social media as, so if I'm a player, or my job as a trainer, as a coach, like, if I'm looking at another kid that my kid's going to play against, I'm not looking at them like, oh, they're so great. I'm looking at what they can't do, and I'm assessing that information, and I'm helping
Yeah,
my kid with it. But a lot of kids are like, oh man, they're so good, and then it the movie Inception, right? They
yep,
talk about, if you place the smallest idea and you just let it grow. Well, if I'm talking to myself like, oh, this person that I matched up with is so good, it's
yep.
gonna grow to be like, oh, this person's so nice. Oh, they D1 bound. Oh, they're just better than me. And
Gassing
but
them
if you're
up.
if you're assessing, yeah, yeah, if you're assessing the situation and using the information, like, okay, they can't do this. I'm gonna take away the left hand. They're shooting pockets over here. I'm gonna contest with this hand. Like, that I'm using that information from social media to help me, versus allowing it to dictate my emotions and my headspace. So it is a detriment if you don't use social media for what
Yeah,
you need to use it for. If you're trying to grow your social media, then use it as that, right? Like,
yeah,
you have to use that to drive your brand or whatever it may be.
yeah.
So yeah, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is a bad thing if you just lose control, right?
Yeah, and I think you're touching on like the importance of perspective, the importance of having a growth mindset, the importance of like what do you control in this situation? Like I don't control that person's skill set, right? Like that
Right,
person is what they are, and it's okay to acknowledge like, hey, that dude's solid, but
right,
here's like a way I can. Here's the advantage I have in this
right,
situation, or that
exactly,
person's good. Okay, I can reach another level now.
right,
But yeah, it becomes a
100%.
detriment where it's like, oh, that's what really good is. Well, I'm clearly not good enough. I
Yeah,
better stop
I'm gonna
training. It's
fold.
like,
I'm gonna fold.
yeah,
So
yeah, so that makes sense, right? Because it's like it's so there's so much more available to us as coaches,
yeah,
trainers,
yeah, yeah.
players,
The
right?
content, the content is crazy. Like,
Yeah,
it I say this a lot. If some of these kids worked as hard as they do on the court as they try to get recruited, they would get recruited. Like, I see kids that just, oh, I'm pumping all these mixtapes, all this, all that, and then like coach comes to see you live and you just straight booty, and it's like, okay, well, like, great. Like,
yeah,
my favorite thing is when I see players that have 11K followers with no off. Like, I'm like, so what are you doing it for? Like,
yeah, exactly.
you know. So it's yeah, you got to control what you can control, and you realistically you got to control it for the right reasons.
Yeah,
Do the right thing. So
yeah. Speaking of all that, so yeah, with your coaching background, right? You coach at a lot of different levels. I mean, I know for sure D2, for sure high school, right? I'm sure you did even youth, like younger than high
Yeah.
school as well. Yeah. What are the main differences you see in terms of like how they approach the game, the mentality? What makes a good youth high school basketball player versus a they're just another dude?
Um, I think the attention to detail, and
Mm,
I know that's like super generic, like everybody says it, but if everybody at the highest level is talking about that, there it's you should probably listen to that. You
yeah,
know, like you know, coaches talk about if they come see you, like they probably have some knowledge as to what you can and cannot do.
yeah,
But what they want to see is like, are you detailing your warm up? Are you just sitting in the corner joking with your friends and the first 3 minutes of the
yeah.
game is just complete trash because you didn't do your dynamic warm up, you didn't do some sort of ball handling. Obviously,
The
at an event,
the
you're
things you're
probably
not
not
going to
doing
put on
form
social
shooting.
media, right?
Yeah, 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 for sure. And then you know, at the highest level, college, even the professionals, is like you got to get in before it's supposed to start. You got to get in, do your treatment, do
Yeah,
your warm up, get into the right headspace. And I think AAU culture has kind of lost that just because it's so back to back, right? Like you're done with the game and it's like, okay, shake hands, and then the next group's already warming up. And then depending on what event you are at, it's like, oh, we gotta stay on time, and you get a 2 minute warm up. So
yeah,
controlling the things you can control and being detailed in what you can control matters. So the 15 minutes before the game's over, like you control that 15 minutes. You
yeah,
can't control what the event provider does and how much time they put on the clock.
yeah,
I mean, you could control it by not signing up for it, but the reality of it is you're going to go play at a live event because there's coaches and you want to be recruited. So you
yeah,
can't necessarily control that, you know?
yeah,
So yeah, attention to detail is a big thing that I found that separates every level. Like your elementary school kid just don't have that attention span to be like, oh, I'm focused on this angle, my hand's supposed to be like this, and they shouldn't.
yeah,
They're in elementary school.
yeah. At that point, just have
But
fun, right? Like,
yeah, 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 for sure. And you gotta I think you have to love what you do before you can be that detailed, you know. So I mean, being great at something is an obsession, right? Like the three
yeah,
guys behind you, I mean, I think they're obsessed with basketball and their craft.
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, yeah. They even talk about it, right? And I mean, I know you've had a chance to, be a part of some Steph Curry workouts. Like he's trying to attention to detail. Like it's not just a general make. Like I have to touch nothing but net, right?
right,
Like you have to be so fine tuned to like what I'm doing, and I gotta love that stuff because that can be frustrating for a lot of people, you know.
right,
Uh, and then even who was it? Like Calipari and Oriama talk about this all the time. Like if I'm going to watch you, I know you can drop 30 points a game. Like, but
right,
yeah, what are you doing when you're on the bench? What are you doing
right.
when your team's losing? When your team's winning?
Yeah,
Right? That's what I want to see. Which makes
exactly.
sense, right? Because like anybody can score.
Like there's not enough minutes to go around. Like when you're not scoring, what are you doing? Are you
Yeah,
defending or are you just standing in the corner and pouting?
yeah,
So yeah, those things. And I think a lot of people they don't understand that about themselves. Like I think the hardest thing, like, is self-assessment
yeah,
for every player. And
yep,
I think, the players that can be critical of who they are as a player without it being detrimental generally have an upward trajectory because they're assessing where can they grow, right? Like you
yeah,
touched on it, the growth mindset. Some people are so harsh on themselves to be perfect. I think there was a video where Kyrie talks about it like basketball's not perfect, but basketball's beautiful.
yeah,
And that's what it is. Like you're never
mm,
going to be perfect. So it's yeah, just I think kids when they figure that piece out to not be overly critical, but just pay attention to the finer details of everything that they do, not just in basketball, right? Like baseball, golf, like to me, golf is one of those sports where like you have to be perfect and you have to pay attention to all the finer details,
yeah.
you know. So
yeah, 1 degree off in your which way your club's facing, and who knows where that
yeah,
ball's gonna
yeah,
go,
that's
right?
exactly where I'm at. I shank everything, you know.
Man, dude,
So
you gotta hone in on those good ones. Oh, that was a good one. What I do? I don't know, but I'm gonna try it again. That's how I go,
yeah,
at least.
exactly.
Um, yeah, and I think like it's hard to change. It's hard to change my work ethic. It's hard to pay attention to details if I'm not self aware of like what my current skill set is, right?
Right.
But then I think too, like you said, yeah, maybe I am self aware, but is that am I using that to my advantage to grow, or am I using that as a way to put me down? Right? Those are two
Yeah.
very different paths.
Yeah, and there's the other aspect of like who's around you, right? Like
Yeah,
for my industry training, we all love to have the best players and all that, and
sure.
and to some extent hyping them up. But if you can't be critical of your client and being truthful of them or for them, that you ultimately lead them down the path of like disappointment.
Yeah,
You know, I worked for this guy Mike Phelps at Prolific Prep, and he always was big on just tell the kids the truth,
yeah,
whether it's good, bad, ugly. Just tell them the truth, because once the disappointment level goes past, like you will work through it. You know,
yeah.
so it's a big thing.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, here's the cold hard truth, and it might suck. However, like it doesn't mean it's the end all be all, right? There are
Right,
paths forward through this, but if you don't know this information, you're not going to be able to work through those kind of things,
right,
So it's like I can gas you up all day and night, but like that's not going to help you work on the things you need to work on, you
right.
know?
It's like the Tom Cruise movie. Oh, you can't handle the truth, right? Forgot what movie that was, but I think that's where it's at with the the training and the coaching. I think it's harder and harder to be a trainer in any sport,
Yeah,
be a coach at any level, because you could be a high school coach and oh, but my trainer says we need to do this, but it's like your coach has won 4 state championships, like they're
yeah,
probably doing something right.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's like
yeah,
when do you listen? Yeah, listen to turn the off season, but yeah, when it's season time, it's like you have a coach who has a background that's
right,
successful. Like maybe I take some of his information for thought,
exactly, exactly.
Um, so you've also at the high school have been a part of public and private schools, yeah?
No public schools.
Okay.
So I joke about it. Like I think it's harder and harder to be at public schools. Like there's just like you could get in trouble for anything and everything.
Yeah.
You know, I try to. I think I got into the private schools pretty early
Okay.
and stayed there just because with what I want to accomplish at a school, like I want to win, and to
Yeah.
some extent, I want to get players out.
Yeah.
So I set the standard pretty early. Like, hey, if you're gonna come here as a freshman, like we're trying to get you out to college,
Yeah.
and whether that gets accomplished or not, like that's in between. And I always tell kids, like, look, you can say you want to be a college basketball player as a freshman, and you're allowed to change your mind,
Yeah.
and that's okay. I think a lot of times people are like, I'm on this, I got to go to the league and all this, all that. And it's like, hey, like maybe you should like worry about making JV first, and then
Yeah.
maybe worry about starting and then making varsity. Like I think a lot of times, you know, being goal oriented is great, but then losing yourself or losing perspective on what the process is to get to the goal
Yeah.
is a big thing. And ends back up with just there's more access to other players now for just sitting at home, right? Like I can look at the best eighth grader in the world
Yeah.
just with a click of social media. And back then, what 14, almost 20 years ago for us in high school, it's like we have to look at the newspaper,
Yeah.
you know, like we have to look at the newspaper to find
Oh
out what the
yeah.
score was in the other side of the league.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's a tough time to be a trainer, a coach, and I think it's a harder time to be a student athlete. You know, so
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I'm on both sides of the fence with goal setting in general too, because it's like it's good to have goals for sure, but if I have this goal of like making the league and I'm just going out there and just like YouTubing workout videos and just doing all this crazy shit, it's like, hey man, like you're a freshman, let's work on just making the freshman team right now and see
right,
what happens there. right? Then after that, then we'll talk about what the next step is. Because it's like it's all building blocks, right? Because like
Right.
focusing too far into the future on that end state, I think sets up a lot of people for disappointment. You know?
Yeah. And like setting little goals, I think is
Yeah.
the big thing. Little victories add up.
Yeah.
So
But yeah, focus on the small wins, right? Like
yeah, yeah,
builds confidence, builds motivation,
yeah,
like so keep
yeah,
it going.
yeah. People always think it's you got to get the big one, or it's like the baseball analogy. Like you're swinging for a home run every time when you really should just be hitting singles and doubles.
You hear coaches say all the time, "Hey, we're
So
down four. It's just you up there. I don't need a home run right now. Just get a single." It's like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah. Like there's no 4 point play. I mean, I guess if you hit a three, that's one of those unrealistic situations. You hit the three, you get fouled, you miss the free throw, but if you kick it back out, you get the two or the three, and then all of a sudden, like that's a one in a what billion scenario. Like it
Yeah,
can happen,
sure.
but that's the hey, do we work on the situation? Are we consistent? You're talking about a ton of different factors besides just like luck. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah. And you've
so
been there as a coach too. Like you're down, I don't know, 20 going into the fourth quarter. It's like, hey, let's just cut it to 15 by this time.
right, and you need a little bit of luck sometimes.
Oh yeah,
A little bit
100%.
of luck, a little bit of pride. You know, so yeah, the
Yeah.
game of basketball is. I mean, being down 20 going into the fourth quarter is it's like nothing now. With the
Oh
with
yeah.
the with the emphasis on the 3 point line. Like every kid can shoot now.
Yeah.
You know, it's I was telling somebody this the other day, like basketball, I think is still one of those sports where it's still evolving. You take a
Yeah.
guy like Steph Curry, he's 6'3", 6'4", and he bombs it from 35 every single game. And then
Yeah.
you have a 7'6" Frenchman just dribbling the ball, blocking shots. I mean, if you correlate that to other sports, it's like a 7 foot quarterback bombing from 80 yards every single game. Like that
Yeah.
has not happened yet. It
Yeah.
could, but a 7 footer is like, I'm not gonna go get hit. I'm gonna go play basketball,
Yeah.
or it's like Steph Curry's correlation is like if some soccer player just boots it from midfield every single game.
Yeah.
So basketball is still evolving, and I was telling my kids that like if you really want to make it in this game that's still evolving, you have to be incredibly detailed and incredibly consistent,
Hmm.
and assess that, for most of us that are not freakishly genetically gifted,
Yeah.
in order for us to even have a small chance of making it to like not even the highest level, just the next level, which is, middle school, high school,
Yeah.
college, and even college, like NAIA, D1, 2, 3, like what level are you trying to get? Like if you're trying to level up, you have to level up your level of consistency and detail.
So how do you do that
So
as a coach? How do you train that someone to be consistent? How do you train that level of detail? I mean, instilling that even in a kid's mind, right? Like,
I think for me, like, most training sessions for every trainer is about an hour,
yeah,
right? I really despise hour workouts. Like I despise hour workouts. To me,
okay,
like if you're being realistic, like you're gonna waste 15 minutes of that doing warm-ups. You're gonna waste
sure,
another 15 minutes of that doing the stuff you're supposed to do every single day.
yeah,
And then you're left with 30 minutes to introduce a brand new skill or retouch a skill that you're working on. I don't think there's enough time for that. Like most of
yeah,
my workouts are generally 90 minutes. Now, if I have if I know I have a group of kids every Tuesday, Thursday, hours good with me because
yeah.
I know that they're getting those skills and those habits microdosed into them, you know. Um Consistency in terms of just as a trainer, like there's some stuff that we do every single workout. It doesn't matter what age you are. Like we're going to do our dynamic warm up. We're going to do form shooting. We're going to do stationary ball handling. Like, and yes, it becomes boring, whatever it may be. But
Sure, yeah,
you do that enough, it adds up, and all of a sudden you figure out how to progress because you have the basic foundation, right? Like I think consistency is just built off of building a foundation. Like the
yeah,
saying is like, "Oh, Rome wasn't built in a day," right? And I think a lot of people forget the second half of that saying that the Romans worked on it every single day.
yeah,
So, it's whatever it is, like whatever skill you're trying to acquire, like do that every single day. And I'm not saying you have to be, you know, an hour of it every single day. But if you
Yeah.
just do 5 minutes, 10 minutes every single day, you're probably getting more hours and repetition than the person you're going to be matched up against, and that's where the advantage happens. You know,
Yeah. And I think, yeah, even with consistent because and tying back into like attention to detail, you talked about it too, like just working on those foundational skills and making it like a routine, a part of your training session, whatever that is. There's a reason Greg Popovich still does footwork before every single practice,
right,
right? Like, hey, whether you're good at this or not, like we're doing it because we want to make
right,
sure we're where we need to be.
right. And it's funny to me that we're in this age of social media, 2024, 2025. The information is out there. I always say this, like, the information is out there. You just have to want to go get it. Like
Yeah.
YouTube, like you can become a significantly better basketball player by YouTubing like a lot of different people. Like there's not just one person. And
Yeah.
even those people that don't have a massive amount of followers or the clout trainers, like they do good stuff.
Yeah.
Now it's up to you to discern whether that fits your game or not, right?
Yeah.
Like if you're a 5'9" point guard, like you probably don't need to be working on dunking,
Yeah. Yeah.
like probably work on your standstill threes, runner floaters, playing off two, ball handling.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the part, like for me as a trainer or coaching, comes in. It's like helping the kid be realistic about what their physical gifts are
Yeah.
and then putting them into that situation. Like with kids, I always sound like, more so high school kids and college kids. Whatever your height is, look in the pros to see if there's a player in that height and to some extent your relative athletic ability, and try to mold yourself after that person.
Yeah.
Like if you're 6 feet, like you probably don't need to be looking at Zach Levine's stuff. It's
Yeah.
cool, but you don't have a 40-inch vertical at 6'6", 6'7", like Zach.
Yeah.
So just being realistic
Yeah.
about what you are. But that's the hard part, right? Like being realistic. We all want that max contract payout. So we're gonna
Sure.
do some crazy stuff. But that's where I think, you know, trainers, the right trainer, the right coaches, the right people around you is important that keep you on the right path, grounded and things like that.
Yeah, and I think I had Logan on here not too long ago, and he
Right.
kind of said the same thing, right? Like who is around you matter, right? Are they
Yeah.
gonna they need to be pointing you in the right direction. You know, and I think
Right.
that's kind of what you're talking about too, is like, yeah, I can go Google a whole bunch of stuff to like work on my game too, but like you as a trainer, it's like, hey, maybe like there's all these things you can look at, maybe start just here. Focus
Right.
your attention here as opposed to trying doing everything. Because at least that way, it's like if I just knock down this stuff,
Yeah.
A, B, and C, and get consistent at that, okay, then maybe I move on to other things, right? But like,
And like realistically, like with a lot of players now, like I don't think you necessarily have to, like obviously like when you're at like the top, right? Your top 10 kids, your college guys, your pro guys, like you're probably sticking with one trainer because they know your game inside and out. They've been
yeah,
there, right? But if you're a young kid, like middle school, elementary school, like you should go work out with different trainers so you get the micro dose of what every trainer's good at. Like
yeah,
there's not a single trainer, in my opinion, in the country, and I've worked for several of them
yeah,
that are just like, I got it all. Like there's not one person that has it all. Whether shooting, ball handling, runner floaters, like everybody's good at something, but you have to assess it by the players that they've produced
yeah,
and then seeing if that fits your game, right?
yeah,
So, that diversity is a or variety, excuse me, is a good thing at a young age.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Give you a chance to kind of figure out like, yeah, what works best for you. What do you like more, right?
right.
Like,
And those kids are still, I mean, they're literally still growing.
yeah,
It's elementary, middle school, like they're still growing, and to some extent, like high school kids they'll hit that crazy growth spurt, but we're talking about one in a couple million where you're going to be, oh, I'm 6'2", and then all of a sudden by senior year you're 7 foot like Anthony Davis. Like that's a
yeah,
that's a very small probability.
yeah, yeah.
So Yeah.
That was a wild jump. I remember when that happened. That was a wild,
Yeah,
wild
that
jump,
was crazy. I
dude.
was like, who is this kid that just blew up
Jeez,
to be the
came
number
out
one?
of
Like we had never heard of him.
no, it came out of
And he
nowhere,
had
man.
goggles, and he had goggles too.
He
I was like,
did
what
have
the fuck?
goggles in the unibrow, man. What a combo,
The
dude. What
goggles in
a
the unibrow in high school. I was like, wow, he's
that's
really going to
tough.
Kentucky.
I say
Yeah,
that's
that was
tough.
crazy. Yeah.
um, so I know you also have a lot of experience with in the collegiate setting too. What do you think? Is there anything? Like, how do I want to phrase this? Like, what are the biggest challenges for kids going from high school to college? You think not just from like a physical standpoint, but also
Oh
just
man.
like a mental, emotional, everything standpoint.
So it's funny because I also had this conversation with somebody the other day. It's time management, and I know it's super cliche, but the reality of it is the NC2A allows 20 hours during the season,
Mhm.
right? 20 hours a week. Most high schools practice what 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. What's the
Yeah,
math on that?
that's
12
12.
hours.
Yeah.
You're 8 hours short already on of the mandatory. Every coach is going to hit that 20 hours.
Oh, you got
You're
mandatory. Okay.
no, I'm sorry, not
Oh,
mandatory.
yeah.
Like those coaches are going to take those 20.
Sure.
You
Yeah.
know, you have the 20 hours that's allotted, so you're 8 hours short from high school to college already. That 8 hours is it's a full shift wherever you work. So then on top of that, you're going to all your classes.
Yeah.
You want to live the college life. You want to go to football games. But the expectation from these college coaches is you're probably expected to add another hour and a half, 2 hours of work those 6 days. So let's just say hour and a half, 6 days is what? That's 9 hours.
Yeah.
So you're sitting at 29 hours a week of kind of expected time,
Yeah.
and then you're sitting at 12 as a high schooler.
Yeah.
Like that's a
Yeah.
massive jump, you know. If you do the like I always say this with kids, like with basketball, a lot of things, like the math has to math out. And going from 12 to 29 hours is it's a massive shock for freshmen. You know, you're not only is your body not really ready for it,
Yeah.
because most kids they just walk up to the to practice. They'll do some sort of dynamic, like it's pretty consistent. I think the athletic training world has put that in our coaches' mind. They're like, hey, I mean, and there's truth to it. Like you should do dynamic warm up, but
Yeah.
college dynamic warm up is extensive. Like you're sweating before you even hit the
Yeah.
court. And those generally don't even really count in your 20 hours. NC2A with basketball gives you 20 hours with the basketball.
Okay.
So until you have a basketball in your hand, like they don't count those hours. I mean,
Yeah.
coaches pinch minutes here, like, oh well, everybody put the ball down. We're showing clips in the middle of practice, so it just drags on, right? Like it's a 4 hour production almost every day.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, you have strength and conditioning, you have your recovery that you really should be doing. And
Yep.
if you have bumps and bruises, you're spending extra time in the recovery room,
Yeah.
right? So like realistically, like going to college, playing a college sports, like it's like a full-time job. It's like 40 hours
Yeah.
on top of the school, whatever you want to do, going to
What kind of
football
social life
games.
you want to
Yeah,
have?
yeah,
Yeah.
social life. And that's a balance, right? So cliche, time management, but when you break it down like that, you're like, oh crap, like that's a lot.
Yeah.
And you tell a kid, they're like, whoa, I didn't know. You don't know what you sign up for until you get there.
Yeah.
So I don't know, like I try to break the math down and the hours down for kids and to some extent like prepare them for it. Like you're good players, you're still what 12 hours. They should be spending an hour and a half every day on top of their own skills.
Yeah. If they're going to
So
college, they're probably doing something like that, right? Maybe it's not
right,
the hours they're going to be putting in, but
right,
it's probably more than the average 12, right?
right, right. Like I don't know if you saw that Christian McCaffrey podcast where his dad was talking to him about like, hey, like we're gonna go get IV bags on Friday before the game. Don't squint your eyes. Don't wear
Oh
jeans because they're
yeah.
heavy on your legs. Like it's crazy, but you're talking about somebody that played in the league and understands like
Yeah.
how hard it takes to get to the next level. And any small advantage you have, the sooner you can figure it out, the small advantages, the better you'll be. So
Oh, yeah.
if you're a freshman and you're trying to play college basketball, like you got to start sprinkling those extra workouts before or after practice. Like you got to sprinkle in those ice baths, those hot tub sessions, whatever it is. Like there's so many things that you should be doing, and like it's probably impossible for us to sit here and list all those things, but
Yeah.
like information's out there. You know,
Again,
you
social
can get
media,
that
you can
information.
find
Yeah,
stuff,
exactly.
right?
Right, right. Using social media for what you need it for
Yeah.
is key. So
So then what about after that, right? Because yeah, I gotta imagine it's a drastic change to your everyday life, right? So there's going to be the struggles in figuring that out. But let's say someone figures that out. Once they start to get the rhythm of that, where do you see like athletes kind of taking, other roadblocks you potentially see along that path?
well, I mean, you start investing, right? You
Yeah.
start investing in yourself, and you're at this certain level of investment. I think it's the thing that it's always hard to see an investment fail. So once kids start figuring that out, like, oh, I'm investing all this time, the failures become worse because I've
Mm,
invested so much to this, but I'm still not winning. Well, but you also got to think about if you don't invest in yourself, you're probably instead of losing by 5, 6, you're probably getting blown out.
yeah.
So it's understanding like basketball is a team sport. And
Yeah.
yes, there are players that can go out and dominate a game, but to dominate a game, every single season over the course of a 4-year high school or collegiate career, like you're talking about like Caitlin Clark's, right? Even like
Yeah.
Caitlin, her freshman year, she's losing to UConn. I mean, she got her lick back at the end of her career, get
Yeah.
knocking UConn out. But
Yeah.
like you're just winning becomes harder and harder every time you level up. And we're talking about every year, like from freshman to JV,
Yeah.
JV to varsity, varsity to every year in AAU, right? Like, your top kids, your top 15-year-olds are probably playing 16s, your top 16-year-olds are probably like 17s,
Yeah.
so it gets harder and harder, and winning becomes to some extent less and less as you level up. So
Yeah.
circling back, that's what you have to take your small victories. Like, hey, I made sure I did my stuff,
Yeah.
and that's a fine line between like, well, I did my job. Did you do yours? And you become a bad teammate if you're thinking of that,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's like making the failures or the losses sting less by like I did what I could. Right.
Right,
It's not like, hey, I did my job, you didn't, you're the reason we lost. It's like, hey, like, yeah, it
right.
sucks that we lost, but like I did my
Yeah, but to
thing
some
and I
extent,
can live with it.
like what you just said, like, oh, you didn't do your job. Well, did I do my job as a leader on the team? Because
Yeah.
I didn't invite you to work out with me,
Yeah.
right? Like when I first started coaching, my best friend's dad, who coached, like he was a head coach at the Division 1 level, he told me, I asked him, what's the best advice you can give me? He said, if you win, it's the kids. If you lose, it's on you.
Yeah.
Because whatever you do, if you lose, you didn't prepare these kids
Yeah.
for that situation, right? So, if I'm a player and I'm the best player on the team, like, well, I passed the ball, I made the great pass. Little Johnny didn't make it. Well, why didn't little Johnny make that shot? Because I don't ever invite little Johnny to shoot with me.
Yeah.
Because to some extent, I'm selfish and I gatekeep and I only want to work out with this trainer. Like, I think I forgot who it was, but like training is training.
Yeah.
If you have to be with, if you're a top level kid and you could only work out with top level kids, like you're going to be disappointed because at some point in college you're going to have a walk on.
Yeah.
You know, so you have to learn to hold yourself accountable to what your craft is versus letting, oh, because some other kid who's not as good is in my workout. Well,
Yeah.
why do they dictate what you do?
Yeah.
They're not as good as you. They shouldn't dictate what you do.
Yeah.
Right. So like I think that's the hard part with my industry with training is like all the top players, even just good high school players, they want the individual sessions. I always joke about this, like you can't do too many individual sessions. Like you become weird because
Yes.
you're just in your own head too much. You have to
Yeah.
learn how to communicate with somebody else and all that stuff.
Well, I
So
think I think too, it's like there's a lot of research on one of the best ways to get out of a bad mood is to help someone else out. Right. It's just like if
yes,
I'm having a
100%.
bad shooting workout, but the other two are kind of getting after it, like a simple like, hey man, good job. Like that might actually help me, right? Get out of my
Yeah, and I
funk
think
seeing
to your
that,
point, like something that's really lost in our youth culture now is just being happy for somebody else.
Yeah.
Like sharing somebody else's success. Like we're always social media, we're always comparing, oh, well, why did I get this offer? Or why didn't I get this offer? Or why did I get this accolade? Like, like you're kind of clout chasing, but to
Yeah.
some extent, I understand. because you feel you're just as good, but the powers that be don't think you are. And you
Yeah.
know, I always laugh when parents are like, "Well, they're so good. Like, why did they get this offer?" So you tell me you think you're better, you think you're smarter than the 400 Division One coaches, and your kid is that good,
Right.
right? You should go apply for a college job. But
Yeah.
once again, like they're not going to get the college job, you know?
Yeah. And I think one thing you're talking about too is like getting in the habit of asking yourself, like, how did I contribute to this? Right. Like you said, I passed it to little Johnny, he didn't make the shot. Instead of being like, dude, he sucks. Like, yeah, I didn't control his ability to make or miss a shot, but it's like, okay, what did I do to contribute to this? Okay, maybe the pass was
Right.
bad. Or yeah, when I go to the gym, he's not there with me. So maybe I ask him, right? I think it's like I think it kind of I don't want to say keeps you humble a little bit, but I think it kind of keeps like maybe there's a little bit of motivation tied to it, right? Like there's always something
Right.
for me to get better at, whether it's a specific skill or it's something like you said, leadership based.
Right.
Right. We're not
Yeah, and
getting the
like,
results we
you
want.
know,
What did I do? You know?
like even if you're working out with somebody that's not as good as you, the internal competition with yourself is, well, I'm not going to let this person win a single competition. And
Yeah.
it's no disrespect. Like, I'm not just out here dogging on my friend, but it's like, hey, like, I'm not going to take it easy on you, because if I take it easy on you, I'm not helping you.
Yeah.
And they don't understand that the other side of the coin is, if I take it easy on them, then I'm not helping myself either.
Yeah.
Right. So there's always two sides to every coin. There's multiple sides to every story.
Yeah.
But I think players, the sooner they can assess that it's not just about you, and that there's always something bigger, the sooner they can get better faster.
Yeah.
And that's a hard lesson. That's a very hard lesson in this age and time,
Yeah.
right? Like, I think every kid has a trainer. You know, it's funny. Like, my job as a trainer, I'm over here like I'm being a bad business person by saying like every kid has a trainer. You know, like at some point you might just want to go play some pickup. You know,
Yeah.
you know.
Pickup can
So,
teach you a lot, man. Like I've said
oh
this
man,
before. I think a
pickup
lot of
is.
kids are missing out on just pickup on the blacktops at the park.
I've
I
seen
learned a
I've seen
lot of stuff
so
from that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And like pick up against like adults.
Oh
You
yeah.
learn little tricks, and I think a lot of kids don't understand conflict resolution.
Yeah.
And you learn that on the blacktop against
No, this
adults.
is it, dude. Like this is how
Because
we're
no, 100%, and
that's
that's
it,
what I was
right?
gonna say.
Like
It's like you want to call the foul? Okay, like you better be ready to shoot for it. Or if they disagree, like you better. And I'm not like
gotta
saying like
back it up,
kids should
yeah.
just, yeah, like, I'm not saying kids should just be fighting their teammates or anything, but like being able to have a conflict resolution, whether it's physically or verbally, is
Yeah.
a big thing. I joke with the kids like, man, if I just gave you all your cell phone, you would communicate so much faster on the court than you guys talk. Like, it's like they're in their own head, and then they gotta like, it's got to go from their head all the way to their mouth, and it's faster from their head to their fingers instead these days.
Yeah.
So it's a very interesting um change and shift in kids and players.
Yeah.
But the game of basketball is just, it's better than it's ever been,
Yeah.
and that makes it harder than it's
Yeah.
ever been.
Yeah. I'm picturing we started this by talking about like the unique ways we train people early on. Now I'm picturing like you're going over defense right now, 2-3 zone or something. Each player has their phone and their job is to text each other.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like that's how
And
we're
like
working on
you saw
communication.
that, that new product where it's like you link all five players together,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's all strapped, and it's funny because it does work, but that's where we've kind of gotten to
Yeah.
as a basketball. Like, we have to have training gadgets for every single thing.
Yeah.
Like, what happened to just going out hooping, shooting with your
Just
dad, and
figured it
things like
out.
that?
I
Yeah, and like there's efficiency in figuring it out. Like, everybody needs guidance
yeah.
and support at some point.
Yeah.
But like, it doesn't just need to be, oh, the every cone is like specialized. Like, I always joke about like, maybe I should put a cone on a go-kart and just maneuver it around in workouts, you know?
I mean,
So it's
I remember I had a teaching moment back when I was JV coach. Yeah, they're having a hard time playing together, right? So I brought in my four buddies who I hadn't played with in 10, 15 years, and then I brought in two of the kids from the freshman team, one of my assistant coach who I never played with. None of us have played together, but we went on there and you just figure it out, right? Like basketball is basketball. You cut, you pass, you get to all these sort of things. And it's kind of one of those things where it's like, guys, sometimes like you just gotta play.
Right.
Just go play and then learn, right? Not
Yeah.
everything has to be so structured. Not everything
Yeah,
needs a
and
gadget.
basketball itself is just, I mean, sports. Every
Yeah,
sport in their own ways is beautiful. And for us, like basketball is a beautiful game if you play it the right way.
yeah,
And there's to some extent there's multiple right ways to play it depending on who is on your team, right? Like, so kind of figuring that piece out is a big part to being good. And it's just figuring out, seeing if you can figure that part out faster than everybody else. And
yeah,
that takes figuring who you are out as a person. And I think,
yeah,
with what you do as a mental performance coach, that's a big aspect to it. I've been, 15 years ago, if we're in high school, we're like, oh, I'm going to go see a sports psychologist. Like, dude, okay, you're soft. Like, what's wrong with you?
yeah,
But now more so, I've been telling my kids, like, hey, you got to find somebody you can talk to. Look, I'm not saying you got to go talk to, somebody twice a week, every week. Like, you're not Tony Soprano,
yeah, yeah,
but talking to somebody before a big event, after a big event, like has a lot of value. It allows you to decompress, and to talk to somebody with a professional background to help you analyze, compartmentalize, and just kind of not necessarily get over it, but to learn from it is a big tool. Like we always talk about, like the brain is what makes everything go. Like if your mind's not right, like guys like me can't do anything about it. Like I'm
yeah,
at some point I'm just going to yell at you, and then it deteriorates.
yeah,
So I've been a big advocate for kids getting mental coaches. Like you spend money on trainers, weight coach, strength and speed and agility. Like that's just the hardware, and that's
yeah,
great. You could upgrade the hardware, but if your software is crap, you don't update your laptop, like it's never going to run.
yeah.
So
Yeah, to be all the time, like you can probably think of the amount of people who had all the physical tools but never make it. It's probably because like they didn't have
yeah,
the mentality to go with it, and vice versa,
right,
right? Like I can be super strong mentally, but like I didn't have the physical skills to do it.
right,
So it's like it takes both. Like you said, it's just building the skill sets, building the resources, building my computer, and making it run and process as much as I can, as effective as I can. You know,
100%,
yeah.
100%.
Well, hell yeah, man. I appreciate you hopping on, dude. A lot of
No,
good
I
nuggets there,
appreciate you
man.
having
Just
me.
talking about hooping, dude, just the culture,
Yeah.
man. I love that. Before I get you out here, what's a word of advice you have for like the listeners who, whether they're athletes, trainers, coaches, people that's in the everyday world, like what's a word of advice you have on them to kind of help, just be better, be the best versions of themselves?
Just be detailed, really. Like just be detailed in your daily life, and whether it's just like put your dishes away, you know, like put your
Start
laundry
there,
away.
right?
I mean,
Like,
yeah, the Navy SEALs talk about it, right? Like just make your bed.
yeah,
You start your day off with a small victory, you make your bed, and it starts compounding. But it's also being detailed in how you make your bed. Like I could just, you know,
hey, maybe bed, yeah,
throw it on there. Yeah, you know. But like there's levels to it. And obviously I'm not making my bed like a Navy SEAL is, but I put stuff away,
yeah,
and that trickles down. You start looking at your kitchen, and that's nice, but your laundry room's a mess. You're like, okay, I gotta do this. And
yeah,
it spirals, it snowballs in a good way, right? Just by
yeah,
being detail oriented in one thing. And if you're detail oriented in your daily life, or even in school, you are going to start understanding, like, hey, I probably need to be a little bit more detailed in my athletic life
yeah.
or my work life, whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
So
And I think if you can build that habit, build that process in everyday life, it'll make it easier to build that habit, build that process in athletics. Right.
yep,
So do
for
it in
sure.
multiple different. Hell yeah. Where's the best way that people can find you? If you want them
I
to,
mean,
you don't have to say no.
yeah, we could get linked up on my social media account, things like that, and just go from there. It's
Okay.
funny because I
What
don't even know what my social media
I
account
was
is
gonna
right
say.
now. So yeah,
I'll
I'll get
I'll
it
put
to
it in the
you.
comments, don't you worry. I got it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
got
yeah.
you.
Speaking of all the social media, I'm so bad on social media. Like I don't post anything. Like it's hard for me to want
It's
to
a hard
post
game,
because
man. Like,
yeah, yeah, I don't want to be like negative about it because like it's just the way the industry
yeah,
works. But like I gatekeep a lot of stuff.
yeah,
Not that like you could take my stuff and do it, but like for me, I think a lot of stuff that I do is not so much the drills, but it's the sequencing, it's the detail of how I
Yeah.
do it. Like a lot of stuff that I do is very simple,
Yeah.
but the simple things usually pays the biggest dividend,
Oh yeah.
you know.
100%.
Um, like there's a quote my mentor used to say it all the time. It's like small hinges swings big doors.
Hmm. Yeah.
So like you look at a door and it's not these massive hinges that move it,
Yeah.
right? It's like it's just this little, there's more hinges and
Looking
it's
at
a
my
bigger
door
door,
right
but
now, I
it's
see three right there.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's little. Like it moves it for you. But
Yeah.
that's the level of details to 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 make those big changes.
I like
So
that. Hell yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah, put that on
yeah.
a t-shirt.
Put
So
that on a t-shirt, baby.
yeah,
Social
yeah,
media hashtag right there.
yeah,
Well, look,
exactly.
man, yeah, I appreciate you coming on. We'll have this again
No, I
sometime. Maybe
appreciate you.
once the NBA season starts up.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll
Thanks for
stay in
having me.
contact for sure. Absolutely. Everybody listening, thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, rate, share, review, all the good stuff. I never get that down right. I just say things, but we're getting close.
We
Uh,
make it work. We
we
make
make
it
it
work.
work. Thank you all for stopping by, and don't forget today's a great day to make an impact. All right, y'all have a good one.